The divorce papers lay on the marble kitchen island like a silent accusation, their crisp edges cutting into the calm of the morning. Naomi Pierce stood across from them, staring for the third time since sunrise, as if the words might rearrange themselves if she looked long enough. Her fingers trembled when she traced the edge of the folder, the smooth surface cold beneath her touch. 5 years of marriage reduced to clauses and signatures, to legal language about community property, asset division, and irreconcilable differences. She had already signed her name 2 days ago. The ink had dried. All that remained was his signature. The house was quiet in that particular way that felt heavier than noise. The only sound came from the antique clock in the hallway, its steady ticking marking time with a patience Naomi no longer possessed. It had been a wedding gift from Zion's mother, something Naomi had loved from the moment it was unwrapped. Everything in this house carried a memory. The imported marble they had chosen together on a trip to Italy, laughing as they argued about veining and color. The reading nook Naomi had designed by the garden windows, imagining mornings spent side by side with coffee and books. The bedroom where they had once stayed awake until sunrise, talking about dreams and futures and everything they were sure they would never lose. Now it was just a house. Beautiful, immaculate, and unbearably cold. Naomi heard the front door open at precisely 7:30 a.m. The sound echoed through the foyer, followed by footsteps she could recognize anywhere, confident, measured, predictable. Zion Holt never arrived late. She took a slow breath and smoothed the front of her cream-colored sweater, the soft fabric grounding her hands. It was the one he had once told her brought out the green in her eyes. Not that he would notice anymore, Naomi. His voice came from the doorway, calm and controlled. She turned to face him. Zion stood tall in his charcoal suit, the cut flawless, the fabric expensive. His phone was already in his hand, blue light reflecting in his eyes as he scrolled through messages. At 39, Zion Holt was everything the business world admired. Disciplined, untouchable. A man who built empires and never showed cracks. His dark hair was perfectly shaped, his jaw set in that familiar expression of focus she had learned to read years ago. "Hi," she said quietly. "I made coffee. I'm good. Had some at the office." He didn't look up at first. Then his gaze drifted to the folder on the island. Something passed across his face so quickly she almost missed it. Recognition, maybe. Or relief. "So," he said, setting his phone down at last. "You really did it. I told you I would." Zion picked up the papers and flipped through them with the same efficiency he brought to every contract and merger. Naomi watched him closely, searching his face for something injure, sadness, regret, anything that suggested this moment mattered to him. His eyes scanned the pages, detached, analytical. "Everything seems in order," he said after a moment. "Your attorney was thorough." "Zion," Naomi said, her voice steady though her chest felt tight. "The settlement is fair. More than fair. You're being generous." Something inside her cracked at the word generous. This was what he had reduced it to. "Numbers, fairness, terms. That's what you want to talk about?" she asked softly. "The settlement." He looked up at her then, really looked at her. And for a brief second she saw confusion flicker in his eyes, as if he genuinely didn't understand what else there was to discuss. "What do you want me to say, Naomi? I want you to feel something." Her voice broke despite her effort to hold it together. "Anything." Zion's jaw tightened. He set the papers back down and reached into his jacket pocket for a pen, a Mont Blanc she had given him on their 2nd anniversary. He probably didn't even remember. "This is what you wanted," he said quietly, as he clicked the pen open. "You brought me the papers because you left me no choice." She stepped closer to the island, gripping the edge of the marble. "When was the last time you asked me about my day? When was the last time we had dinner together without you taking a call? When was the last time you touched me like you meant it?" Something shifted in his expression, subtle but real, yet he didn't answer. Instead, he signed the first page with swift, decisive strokes. Naomi felt tears burn behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not now. She had cried enough in empty rooms, in the shower where he couldn't hear her. In the middle of the night when he worked late again, she watched him sign the second page. Then the third. Each signature felt like a door closing. "There," Zion said, setting the pen down. "It's done." But Naomi didn't reach for the papers. She stayed where she was, looking at the man she had loved since she was 20. The man who had promised her everything and somehow given her nothing that mattered. "One more thing," she heard herself say. Zion looked up, his expression guarded. "What?" Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat, but she held his gaze. "One last night, before it's really over." He went completely still. "Naomi," he said slowly. "Not like this." She gestured to the space between them, the careful distance they had maintained for months. "I don't want the last memory of us to be you signing papers in a suit. I don't want the end to be nothing." "What are you asking?" "I'm asking for one night where we're not strangers. Where we remember what it felt like before everything got so cold." Her voice steadied even as her hands shook. "Tomorrow, we can be done. The lawyers can file everything. We can divide the furniture and decide who keeps the house. But tonight," she swallowed, "tonight, I want to remember why I loved you." The clock ticked in the hallway. A car passed outside. Zion's phone buzzed with a notification he didn't check. "You think one night will change anything?" he asked finally, his voice rougher than before. "No," Naomi said honestly. "But I think I deserve to say goodbye to the man I married, not the one standing in front of me now." Something flickered in his eyes then. Pain, maybe. Or recognition of the man he used to be. He looked down at the signed papers, then back at her face, really seeing her. The unshed tears in her eyes. The way her sweater hung a little looser than it used to. The way she stood there, vulnerable and brave and quietly breaking. "Okay," Zion said at last, his voice low. One night, Naomi's breath caught. She hadn't truly expected him to agree. 9:00, she said. "I'll be in our room." She turned away before he could respond, before she could change her mind, before the tears finally spilled over. As she walked up the stairs, she felt his gaze following her, heavy and unreadable. Neither of them knew that by morning everything would be different. That the man who woke up would be someone Zion Holt had forgotten how to be, and that sometimes goodbye was just another word for beginning again. Zion stood in his home office long after Naomi disappeared upstairs, staring at the signed divorce papers without truly seeing them. The pen lay where he'd dropped it, ink still fresh. The finality of it all settling into the room like dust. 9:00. She had said it calmly, as if she was scheduling a meeting instead of asking for the last piece of something already broken. He checked his watch. 7:45. An hour and 15 minutes to decide whether this was mercy or torture. His phone buzzed on the desk. Marcus, no doubt, following up on the merger details. Zion glanced at the screen, then set the phone face down without answering. For the first time in years, a business call felt irrelevant. "When was the last time you asked me about my day?" Naomi's words echoed in his mind, sharp and unrelenting. He tried to remember. Tuesday. No, he'd been in Boston. Last weekend. He'd been on calls most of Saturday. When was the last time they'd talked about anything that wasn't schedules or obligations? He loosened his tie and walked to the bar cart, pouring himself a scotch he didn't really want. The house felt different tonight, heavier, as if the walls themselves knew something was ending. His gaze drifted around. The room, memories surfacing uninvited. The first time he'd brought Naomi here, 5.5 years ago, she'd walked through the space slowly, hands clasped behind her back, taking everything in with that quiet focus she had. "It's beautiful," she'd said when they reached the bedroom, "but it needs warmth. Life. What would you do?" He'd asked. She'd pointed toward the corner near the window. A reading nook. Big windows, plants that catch the morning light, a place where you can just breathe. He'd told her to do whatever she wanted, and she had. She'd turned the house into something that felt alive, not just expensive furniture and clean lines, but warmth. Spaces that invited you to stay. When had he stopped noticing? Zion finished his drink and checked the time again. 8:30. He should shower. Change, but into what? He'd worn suits for so long, he couldn't remember what casual felt like anymore. Still, he climbed the stairs slowly, each step heavier than the last dot light spilled from beneath the bedroom door. Soft music drifted out, something instrumental. Familiar, their wedding song. His hand hovered over the doorknob. I want to remember why I loved you. He took a breath and pushed the door open. The room had changed. The overhead lights were dimmed, replaced by the warm flicker of candles lining the dresser. The windows were open, letting in the cool evening air. The curtains moved gently with the breeze, and Naomi stood near the window, her back to him. Wrapped in a simple white silk robe, her hair fell loose down her back, catching the light. When she turned, the look on her face nearly undid him. Nervous, hopeful, heartbroken. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi," he replied, his voice rougher than he intended. For a long moment, they just stood there, the space between them thick with everything unsaid. Zion noticed things he hadn't seen in years, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was anxious, the faint freckles across her nose, the small scar on her wrist she'd once told him about on their third date. "I almost thought you wouldn't come," she said quietly. "I said I would. You say a lot of things." Zion. There was no accusation in her tone, just truth. He stepped farther into the room, shrugging off his jacket. The simple act felt intimate in the candlelight. Naomi watched him undo his cuffs, roll up his sleeves. "Do you remember our first date?" she asked suddenly. "The gallery opening," he said automatically. "No, the real first date." She smiled faintly. "The Italian place in the West Village. We sat outside even though it was cold." He searched his memory. "You ordered red wine and complained it was too dry. And you told me about your father," she continued. "About growing up in his shadow. About building Whitmore Media to prove something to a man who never lived to see it." Zion's chest tightened. He had told her that. Under string lights, 3 glasses of wine, in feeling seen for the first time in years. "You listened," he said quietly. "Because it mattered." She stepped closer. "You mattered." She lifted her hand and pressed her fingers gently against his lips. "Not tonight. Tonight, we don't talk about what went wrong, or who's to blame. Tonight, we just remember what it felt like to be us." Zion caught her hand, pressing it to his chest where his heart was pounding. "I don't know if I remember how." "Then let me remind you." She rose onto her toes and kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, like a question. Zion froze for half a second before his arms came around her, pulling her closer. She fit against him the way she always had. Like something that had been missing had finally slipped back into place. The kiss deepened slowly. No urgency. No desperation. Just recognition. Her fingers slid into his hair, and something inside him broke open. She used to do this every morning before he left for work, straighten his collar, kiss his cheek, tell him to have a good day. Somewhere along the way, he'd stopped noticing. They moved toward the bed without speaking. Guided by memory more than intention, clothes were shed slowly, hands relearning familiar shapes. There was no rush, no need to prove anything. Only the quiet intensity of 2 people rediscovering each other. Zion traced the curve of her shoulder, the line of her spine, memorizing her all over again. Naomi's hands explored him with the same care, as if she were trying to hold on to this moment. To burn it into memory, that came together not with urgency, but with reverence. Every touch carried weight. Every breath felt like both an ending and a beginning. It was tenderness layered with grief, love wrapped in regret. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the candlelight, neither of them speaking. Naomi rested against his chest, her breathing slow and steady. Zion ran his fingers through her hair, the way he used to, on nights when they talked until dawn. "Zion," she murmured. "Yeah, thank you." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "For what?" "For being him again," she whispered. "Even if it's just for tonight." Something in his chest cracked wide open. He wanted to tell her he could be that man every day, that he'd forgotten how to be soft, because he'd been fighting so hard to stay strong. That somewhere along the way, he'd lost himself. But before he could say any of it, her breathing deepened. She was asleep. Zion lay awake long after, holding her, staring at the ceiling as the weight of what he was about to lose settled into his bones. In the darkness, with her warmth against him, and her trust given one last time, he finally understood what he had been too blind to see. This wasn't just a woman beside him. This was his home, and by morning, she would be gone. Logan woke to silence, not the comfortable kind, not the peaceful quiet of early morning, but the hollow kind that made his chest tighten before his mind was fully awake. His hand reached instinctively across the bed, searching for warmth. For the familiar curve of Naomi's body, there was nothing there. His eyes opened slowly. The space beside him was empty, the sheets cool and undisturbed. For a brief, disoriented second, he wondered if the night before had been a dream. The candlelight, her voice, the way she'd fallen asleep against his chest, but the faint scent of her perfume still lingered in the air, and that told him everything he needed to know. "Naomi," he said softly, his voice rough with sleep. No answer. He pushed himself upright, rubbing a hand over his face. Morning light filtered through the curtains she had chosen years ago, the soft linen glowing faintly as the sun rose behind it. He had never noticed how carefully she'd picked them, how they let in just enough light. Without being harsh, he swung his legs over the side of the bed, his chest tight with a feeling he couldn't quite name yet. The robe she'd worn the night before was gone from the chair. The bathroom door stood open, dark and empty. No sound of running water, no movement. That was when he saw it. A folded piece of paper lay on her pillow. His name was written across the front in her careful handwriting. Logan's breath caught as he picked it up. He already knew what it was before he unfolded it. His fingers trembled slightly as he opened the note. "Logan, thank you for last night. Thank you for being the man I fell in love with. Even if it was only for a few hours. I needed to remember that he was real. That we were real. I know you'll want to believe this changes everything. That maybe we can go back to how things were. And maybe part of you hopes that's true. But I can't stay in a marriage where I have to ask for one perfect night like it's a gift instead of something we should have had every day. The papers are signed. My attorney will file them Monday. I've taken what's mine and left the rest. The house is yours. You earned it. And honestly, I think you need it more than I do. You need something that feels like home, even if you don't know how to live in it yet. I hope you find what you're looking for. Logan, I really do. I hope you build something even bigger than Whitmore Media. I hope you win every deal, close every contract, and prove whatever it is you're still trying to prove. But more than that, I hope one day you let yourself be human again. I hope you find someone who can reach you in ways I couldn't. Someone you don't have to lose before you remember how to love them. Thank you for 5 years. The good ones were really good. Be well. Nao MIPS. I'm leaving the reading nook. I built it for you, not me. Use it sometime. Just sit there and breathe. You might like it. Logan read the letter once, then again and again. Each word felt heavier than the last, settling into his chest like stone. His hands shook as he lowered the paper to the bed, staring at it as though it might change if he looked long enough. You might like it. The words echoed in his mind. He stood abruptly, the movement sudden and unsteady, and reached for his phone on the nightstand. 11 missed calls. 23 emails. None of it mattered. He scrolled until he found her name and pressed call. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Hi. You've reached Naomi. Leave a message, and I'll get back to you when I can. The sound of her voice warm, calm, alive made his throat tighten. Naomi, he said, his voice low and urgent. It's me. Please call me back. He ended the call and tried again immediately. Straight to voicemail. Logan dragged a hand through his hair and stood there for a moment, breathing hard. Then he moved quickly, pulling on yesterday's clothes, not bothering to shower or straighten himself. The careful routine that once governed his mornings meant nothing now. He took the stairs 2 at a time and headed for the garage. His black Mercedes sat where it always did. Her silver Lexus was gone. The empty space beside his car hit him harder than he expected. He stood there under the humming fluorescent lights, staring at it, feeling something unfamiliar claw its way up his chest. Panic, not the kind that came from business crises or bad press. This was raw and physical, the kind that made his hands shake and his breath come too fast. He pulled out his phone and dialed his assistant. Mr. Holt. Jessica answered on the first ring, surprise clear in her voice. It was barely 7 in the morning. He never called this early. Jessica, he said, his voice tight. I need you to find someone. Of course. Who? Naomi. There was a pause. Your ex-wife? Not yet, he said quickly. Then, softer, please. I need to know where she went. Sir, I'm not sure that's please, he cut in. The word rough and unguarded. Just find her. Another pause. Longer this time. I'll see what I can do. He hung up and walked back into the house. It felt different now. Too quiet. Too large. Every room echoed with absence. He wandered through spaces he barely used. The dining room where they'd hosted exactly 3 dinners in 5 years. The living room with the piano Naomi used to play on Sunday mornings. The kitchen where she'd made coffee every day, even when he'd already had some at the office. His feet carried him down the hallway without thinking. The reading nook. Sunlight poured in through the tall windows, illuminating the chair she had chosen, the shelves she had filled, the soft blanket draped over the arm. It was perfect. Designed for him. For comfort. For stillness. He sat down slowly. The chair fit him exactly. On the small side table sat a book. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, a book he'd mentioned once, in passing years ago. She had remembered. His phone buzzed. Jessica. She checked into the Riverside Hotel downtown last night, she said carefully. Room 304. His heart leapt. Thank you. But, sir, he had already ended the call. Logan grabbed his keys and headed for the door, then stopped short. He looked down at himself. Wrinkled shirt, undone collar, dark circles under his eyes. He looked like a man falling apart. Maybe was, but he went anyway. The drive downtown felt endless. His mind raced with everything he wanted to say, every apology, every promise. But as the hotel came into view, the words evaporated. What could he possibly say that would matter now? He sat in the car for a full 10 minutes before forcing himself to move. The lobby was quiet, modest, nothing like the luxury she'd been surrounded by for years. It felt intentional. He approached the front desk. I'm looking for the guest in room 304. The clerk glanced at the screen. I'm sorry, sir. Ms. Lane checked out this morning. The floor tilted beneath him. What? About an hour ago. Paid in full. Left no forwarding information. Did she say where she was going? Logan asked, desperation creeping into his voice. The clerk hesitated. I'm not supposed to say, but I heard her mention an apartment viewing. Around 9. Logan checked his watch. 8:4, 2. He was already losing her again. Logan spent the next 3 days barely functioning. He showed up to work on Monday morning before sunrise, hoping the familiar rhythm of meetings and numbers would drown out the noise in his head. It didn't. If anything, it made it worse. By 9 a.m., his executive team had already noticed something was wrong. He snapped at Marcus during the strategy briefing, lost his train of thought halfway through a presentation he'd reviewed a dozen times, spent nearly 20 minutes staring at a contract without reading a single word. Logan. He looked up to find Patricia, his CFO, standing in the doorway after the rest of the team had filed out. You okay? She asked carefully. You don't look okay. I'm fine, he said automatically. She didn't buy it. You haven't slept in days. He didn't argue. There was no point. Personal stuff, he added, gathering the papers on the table as if that would end the conversation. Her expression softened. The divorce. The word landed heavier than he expected. It's handled, he said, but nothing was handled. That night, he went home to a house that felt like a mausoleum. The silence pressed in on him from every direction. He ordered takeout he didn't touch, poured a drink he didn't finish. Eventually, he found himself standing in the reading nook. Staring at the chair Naomi had chosen for him, he picked up the note again. "I hope one day you let yourself be human again." The words burned. Tuesday was worse. He cancelled meetings, ignored emails, spent hours searching for Naomi online like a man possessed. Her social media accounts were gone. Her design website displayed a single line across the homepage. Currently unavailable. She had disappeared completely. By late afternoon, he called Jessica into his office. "Did you find anything else?" he asked. She hesitated before placing a thin folder on his desk. She signed a 6-month lease. Riverside District, 1 bedroom, modest. Logan opened the folder slowly. Maple Street, 3rd floor. He could already picture it. Hardwood floors, tall windows. The kind of place Naomi would make, warm with thrifted furniture and soft lighting. A place she could afford on her own. A place chosen deliberately without him. "Thank you," he said quietly. Jessica lingered at the door. "For what it's worth, sir, I hope you figure this out." When she left, Logan sat alone, staring at the address. Wednesday broke him. He was in the middle of a conference call when he heard it, piano music. For a split second, his heart stopped. He looked up, disoriented, searching the room. Then he realized it was coming from the house's sound system. Old playlist Naomi used to play on Sunday mornings. Debussy, Claire de Lune. He ended the call abruptly and walked into the living room. The piano stood untouched, the sheet music still open where she'd left it months ago. He pressed a key with one finger. The sound rang out wrong and hollow. She had tried to teach him once. They'd sat together on the bench, her hands guiding his, laughing when he missed the notes. "You're terrible at this," she'd teased. "Then why are you teaching me?" "Because watching you try is adorable." When had they stopped laughing? His phone rang. Unknown number. "Is this Logan Holt?" A woman asked. "Yes. This is Claire Anderson from Anderson & Cole Interiors. Naomi listed you as a reference." His chest tightened. "She's brilliant," he said without hesitation. "She sees things other people don't. She understands how spaces should feel, not just how they look." A pause. "That's very kind," the woman replied. "Is she available? Can I speak to her?" he asked. "I'm afraid she's with a client right now. Please tell her." He stopped himself. What could he possibly say? Tell her the reading nook is perfect. Another pause. "I'll pass that along." The call ended. That evening, Logan did something he hadn't done in 5 years. He went grocery shopping. He wandered the aisles of the small market Naomi used to visit on weekends, picking things up without really knowing why. Fresh basil, cherry tomatoes, olive oil she liked, pasta. The ingredients for a meal she used to make on summer nights. At home, he tried to recreate it. The result was barely edible. He ate alone at the dining table, sitting in her chair, every bite reminding him of how much he'd taken for granted. That night, he fell asleep in the reading nook, with the book still open on his lap. Thursday morning, he woke with a stiff neck and a deeper ache in his chest. His phone buzzed with a calendar. Reminder, anniversary dinner, cancelled. It would have been their 5th anniversary. He stared at the screen, remembering how he'd cancelled the reservation 2 weeks earlier for a deal in Seattle. "We can celebrate another night," she'd said. They never had. He walked to the back of his closet and pulled out the box he hadn't opened in years. Inside were memories he'd buried, photos, cards, a dried flower from her bouquet, and a small jewelry box. He opened it slowly. Inside lay a gold bracelet with a tiny charm shaped like a house. The door etched with a heart. He'd bought it 3 months after their wedding, never given it to her. Logan closed his hand around it, feeling the weight of every missed moment. His phone rang. "Singapore's calling," Jessica said. "Urgent. Cancel it, sir." "Cancel it. Clear my schedule for tomorrow." A pause. "Are you sure?" I'm sure. He slipped the bracelet into his pocket. Tomorrow, he would find her. Tomorrow, he would tell her everything he should have said years ago, even if it was already too late. Logan stood across the street from Anderson and Cole Interiors for nearly 15 minutes before he moved. The building sat on a quiet stretch of the Arts District, its brick exterior softened by wide windows and climbing ivy. Inside, warm lights spilled onto the sidewalk, revealing carefully arranged furniture displays and mood boards pinned with fabric samples and color palettes. It was exactly the kind of place Naomi would choose, creative, thoughtful. Alive, he adjusted the collar of his sweater for the third time, suddenly aware of how different he looked from the man who usually walked into boardrooms. No suit, no armor, just dark slacks, a navy sweater, and a pulse that wouldn't slow down. His hand brushed against the small box in his pocket. The bell above the door chimed as he stepped inside. The scent of coffee and something floral gardenia maybe hung in the air. A woman with silver hair and kind eyes looked up from the front desk. "Good morning," she said warmly. "Welcome to Anderson & Cole. Do you have an appointment?" "No," Logan replied. "I'm looking for Naomi Pierce." Recognition flickered across her face. "Ah, you must be Mr. Holt." His chest tightened. "Yes, I'm Claire Anderson," she said, standing. "Naomi mentioned you." He wasn't sure whether that was good or bad. "She's with a client at the moment," Claire continued. "But she should be finished soon. You're welcome to wait." She gestured toward a seating area near the window. Logan nodded, suddenly unsure what to do with his hands. "Would you like some coffee?" "No, thank you." He sat, forcing himself to breathe, his eyes drifting over the space. Everything about it felt intentional, calm, purposeful. It looked like a place where people came to create, not escape. 10 minutes passed. Then he heard her voice. "And if we go with the lighter wood tones here, it'll open the space without feeling sterile. You want it to feel like a home, not a showroom." The consultation room door opened. Naomi stepped out, arms full of sample boards, her face animated as she spoke to a young couple beside her. She looked different, not just in clothes, a cream blouse tucked into camel trousers, but in presence, grounded, alive. Logan's breath caught. She laughed softly at something the woman said, then handed them a stack of materials. "Call me once you've had time to think about it. There's no rush." The couple thanked her and headed for the door. Naomi turned back toward her office and froze. Their eyes met for a moment. Neither of them moved. Logan watched emotions flicker across her face in quick succession. Surprise, confusion, something that looked like hurt. Then carefully controlled calm. "Logan," she said evenly. "What are you doing here?" He stood slowly. "I needed to see you." Her jaw tightened. "How did you, Jessica?" he admitted. "I asked her." She exhaled through her nose but didn't respond. Instead, she set the sample boards down with deliberate care. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Somewhere private." Naomi hesitated, then glanced toward Claire, who gave her a small, encouraging nod. "There's a courtyard," Naomi said. 5 minutes. She led the way through the office, her posture professional, controlled. Logan followed, acutely aware of the eyes on them. The courtyard was small but thoughtfully arranged, string lights overhead, potted plants lining the brick walls, a few cafe tables scattered around. Naomi stopped near the far corner and turned to face him, folding her arms across her chest. "Okay," she said. "Talk up close." He could see the exhaustion she tried to hide, the faint shadows beneath her eyes, the weight she carried quietly. "You look good," he said softly. "I'm trying to be." There was no warmth in her voice. "Naomi, if you're here to check on me," she cut in, "or to make yourself feel better, I'm here because I was wrong." The words came out before he could stop them. Her expression didn't change. "You signed the papers. I know you let me leave. I know you didn't call. Not once. Not for 3 weeks." His chest tightened. "I thought you wanted space." "What I wanted," she said quietly, "was for you to notice I was disappearing before I actually left. Silence stretched between them. That night, she continued. Her voice, steady but fragile, was supposed to be closure. It was supposed to help me let go, did it? He asked. She hesitated. I don't know yet. Logan took a careful step closer. I've been using the reading nook. Every morning, I read the book you left. Good for you. You were right about everything you wrote, he said. I lost myself. I stopped being human. She looked away. But you were wrong about one thing. She glanced back at him. What? You said you hoped I'd find someone who could reach me in ways you couldn't. His voice dropped. Naomi, you were the only one who ever did. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't let the tears fall. Don't, she said. Don't make this harder. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the small box. I bought this 3 months after we got married, he said quietly. I never gave it to you. I kept waiting for the right moment. He held it out to her. What is it? She asked. Open it slowly. She did. The gold bracelet caught the afternoon light. The tiny house charm, spinning gently. You said you wanted to build a home with me, he said. Not just live in a house. I heard you. I just forgot to show you. A tear slipped down her cheek. Why now? She whispered. Why couldn't you remember this before everything fell apart? Because I thought success would fill the space you left, he said, and it didn't. It just made it louder. He took a breath. The house is empty without you. Everything I built feels pointless. I don't want to be the man who signed those papers. I want to be the man you fell in love with. She closed the box, holding it against her chest. I can't go back to how things were, she said. I'm not asking you to. Then what are you asking? He met her eyes, his voice steady, despite the fear tightening his chest. I'm asking for a chance to prove I can be different. Not perfect. Just present. She shook her head slightly. I don't know if I can trust you again. I know, he said. But I had to try. I had to tell you that losing you woke me up. They stood in silence, the city humming faintly beyond the courtyard walls. Finally, Naomi spoke. I need time. Relief and fear tangled in his chest. Take all the time you need. She slipped the bracelet into her pocket. I should get back to work, he nodded. Thank you for hearing me. She paused before turning away. I don't know where this leads, Logan. I'll be here, he said quietly. Wherever it leads, she walked back into the building without looking back. Logan stayed where he was, heart heavy but strangely lighter than it had been in weeks. He had said his piece. Now, all he could do was prove it. The days that followed unfolded quietly, without drama or declarations. Logan didn't call every day. He didn't show up unannounced or flood Naomi's phone with messages. He did the one thing he had never done before. He waited. When he did reach out, it was brief and careful. Hope your day went well. No need to reply. Just thinking of you. Sometimes, she answered. Sometimes she didn't. And for the first time, he respected the silence. A week passed before she texted him first. I'm free for coffee tomorrow. If you are. He stared at the screen longer than he cared to admit before replying, I am. Wherever you want. They met at a small cafe halfway between her apartment and his office. The kind of place with mismatched chairs and soft music humming in the background. Naomi arrived first, already seated near the window. A mug cradled between her hands. She looked up when he walked in, no smile, but no tension either. That felt like progress. They talked about small things at first. Her new projects, a client who couldn't decide between walnut and oak, a neighborhood bookstore she'd discovered down the street. Logan really listened, without interrupting. Without checking his phone, it felt strange how much effort that took. When the conversation drifted towards silence, he didn't rush to fill it. I'm glad you came, she said eventually. So am I. They finished their coffee and parted without touching. 2 days later, flowers arrived at her office. Not roses, wildflowers, daisies, lavender, soft yellow blooms arranged in a simple glass jar. The note was handwritten. You once said these reminded you of your grandmother's garden. I hope they make you smile without asking anything in return. Naomi stared at them for a long time before placing them on her desk. Claire raised an eyebrow. That man is trying. I know, Naomi said quietly. She didn't throw the flowers away. Another week passed. They met again, this time for lunch. Then once more, for coffee. Conversations stretched longer. Laughter slipped in when neither of them expected it. Still, Logan never pushed, never asked for answers, never asked for forgiveness. He simply showed up. One evening, as Naomi was locking up the office, she found a message waiting on her phone. I'm walking past your building. No pressure. Just thought I'd say hi. She hesitated, then typed back, I'm still here. He waited across the street. When she stepped outside, hands in his jacket pockets, looking oddly unsure of himself. You stalking me now? She asked lightly. Only a little, he admitted. And only because I know you work late on Thursdays. She studied him for a moment, then sighed. I forgot my jacket. He immediately shrugged out of his own and held it out. She hesitated, then took it. Thank you. They walked together in silence for a block before she spoke again. Did you eat? He blinked. No. There's a Thai place around the corner. It's not fancy. I'm not picky. That's not what I remember. I'm trying to update my personality. That earned him the smallest smile. The restaurant was warm and crowded, the air heavy with spice and garlic. They slid into a booth near the back, menus in hand. You don't know what to order, she said, watching him. I don't. She shook her head. Drunken noodles. Medium spice, you're sure? You used to like spicy, he paused. I don't remember what I like anymore. The words slipped out before he could stop them. Her expression softened. Maybe you're remembering now. They ate in comfortable silence at first. Then, slowly, cautiously, conversation returned. You used to come here all the time, she said. I did. Second month we were dating. You loved the mango sticky rice. He smiled faintly. I really forgot a lot, didn't I? Yes, she said simply. You did. The truth hung between them. I'm not asking you to forget it, he said. I just want the chance to do better. She studied him over the rim of her glass. People don't change overnight. I know. I'm trying to change every day. She was quiet for a moment. Did you mean what you said? About stepping back from work? Yes. You're serious. I cancelled the Singapore expansion. Promoted Marcus. I'm not running anymore. Her eyes widened. Logan, that deal was huge. So was losing you. Silence followed, heavier this time. You can't make your life smaller just for me, she said quietly. I'm not, he replied. I'm making room for it. When they finished eating, he didn't reach for her hand. Didn't lean in. Just walked beside her back toward her building. At the door, she stopped. I'm scared, she admitted, of believing you and getting hurt again. I know, he said softly. I am too. She hesitated, then looked up at him. I need time, take it. She nodded slowly. Okay? As she turned to go inside, she paused. Logan, yeah. I put the bracelet on today. His breath caught. How did it feel? She touched her wrist unconsciously, like something you promised a long time ago, and might finally be ready to keep. She disappeared into the building, leaving Logan standing there, heart pounding, hope fragile but alive. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like he was chasing something he'd already lost. It felt like something that might still be possible. 3 weeks passed in a careful rhythm neither of them dared to name. Logan didn't push. Naomi didn't retreat. They spoke twice a week, sometimes 3. Always short at first, then longer as the walls slowly lowered. Coffee on Tuesdays. A walk after work on Fridays. No expectations. No pressure. Just presence. It felt fragile, delicate, like something that could shatter if handled too roughly. On the 4th Tuesday, Naomi surprised them both. I have Saturday off, she said, stirring sugar into her coffee. There's a farmer's market in Riverside Park, if you're free. Logan looked up, carefully hiding the rush of hope that surged through him. I'm free. It starts at 8, she added. Don't be late. I won't be. Saturday arrived with clear skies and crisp air. Logan showed up 5 minutes early, wearing jeans and a grey Henley instead of a suit. He looked different, lighter somehow. Less guarded. Naomi approached with a canvas tote slung over her shoulder. You're early, she said. I didn't want to risk being late. That earned him a small smile. They walked into the market together, surrounded by the sound of laughter, music, and vendors calling out prices. The scent of baked bread and fresh fruit filled the air. Naomi moved slowly, studying each stall with care. She picked up tomatoes, turning them in her hands. These are good, she murmured. You can tell by the weight. Logan watched her, something warm tightening in his chest. You used to try to teach me that. I know. You were always distracted. I'm paying attention now. She glanced at him, searching his face for sarcasm. Finding none, she nodded and dropped the tomatoes into her bag. They stopped at a bakery next. Logan bought a loaf of sourdough before she could protest. At the flower stand, he paused in front of a bucket of sunflowers. You remember, she said softly. He did. His mother had loved them. He'd told Naomi once, years ago. I haven't visited her grave in a long time, he admitted. Maybe you should, she said gently. I'll go with you, if you want. The words hit him harder than he expected. I'd like that. They walked on, eventually settling onto a bench near a fountain. Children laughed nearby. An elderly couple passed hand in hand. Do you ever wonder what things would have been like if we'd done it differently? Naomi asked quietly. Every day, Logan admitted, but I'm trying not to live in the past anymore. Why not? Because I can't fix what I already broke. I can only do better now. She studied him, searching for cracks in his resolve. That night, she said after a moment, when you agreed to it, did you think it would change anything? He didn't answer right away. No, he said finally. I thought it was closure. I didn't realize you were holding up a mirror. And what did you see? Everything I stopped being, he said. Everything I lost by choosing success over connection. He reached for her hand slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. I've started therapy, he added quietly. Every Thursday, her eyes widened. You're serious? Very first thing she asked me was what I do for joy. I couldn't answer. And now, he gestured around them. This. Being here. Talking to you. Remembering who I am when I'm not working. Naomi looked down at their joined hands. I'm still angry, Logan. You should be. And I'm scared we'll fall back into old habits. So am I then. Why keep trying? He squeezed her fingers gently. Because losing you showed me what life looks like without meaning. And I don't want to live that way again. She didn't answer, but she didn't pull away either. They sat in silence for a while, comfortable, thoughtful. Then she stood suddenly. Come on. Where? My apartment, she said. You're going to help me cook with whatever we bought. No planning. No schedules, he smiled. That sounds dangerous. She lifted her chin. You'll survive. At her door, she hesitated before unlocking it. This doesn't mean we're fixed, she said. I know, and I'm not promising anything. I know. She searched his face one last time, then opened the door. Inside, her apartment was small but warm. Light streamed through the windows. Plants lined the shelves. Every detail felt intentional, personal. Welcome to my life, she said softly. He stepped inside, realizing something fundamental had shifted. Not healed, not resolved, but real. For the first time in years, Logan felt like he was standing at the beginning of something instead of the end. The illusion of calm didn't last long. It never did. They were in Naomi's kitchen when it happened midway through chopping vegetables. The soft hum of music playing from her speaker. The scent of garlic and olive oil warming the air. Logan stood at the counter, sleeves rolled up, concentrating far too hard on not burning anything. Naomi leaned against the opposite counter, watching him with quiet amusement. You're holding the knife like it personally offended you, she said. I'm being cautious. You're being dramatic. He smirked. Same thing. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it, then ignored it. A moment later, his phone vibrated in his pocket. Then again, and again, he froze. Naomi noticed immediately. "You can answer it," she said gently. "It's okay." Logan hesitated, the muscle in his jaw tightening. "It's probably nothing." The phone buzzed again. This time, she picked it up and glanced at the screen before handing it to him. "It's your lawyer. And Marcus has called 5 times. The air shifted. Logan felt it instantly, that familiar pull. The invisible gravity of responsibility yanking him back toward the world he'd built his life around. He swallowed. "It's probably about the Meridian deal." Naomi didn't say anything. She just waited. "I can step outside," he said, already moving. Her voice stopped him. "Logan," he turned. "If you need to go," she said carefully, "just say that." He searched her face, recognizing the fear she was trying to hide. The same fear that had lived there for years, the fear of being left behind. "I don't want to go," he said, "but I do need to handle this." She nodded once. "Then do it." He stepped away, answering the call. "Robert, what's going on?" The voice on the other end was tight. "We've got a problem. The Meridian acquisitions, someone leaked confidential terms, stock's already reacting. The board wants you on a call in 30 minutes. Logan closed his eyes. "How bad?" "Bad enough that if this isn't handled carefully, we could lose the deal." He glanced back toward the kitchen. Naomi stood very still, pretending to rearrange something on the counter that didn't need rearranging. "I need 5 minutes," Logan said. "Then call Marcus and loop him in." "Logan, the board is asking for you specifically." "I said loop Marcus in." Pause. "Understood." Logan ended the call and turned back to Naomi. "It's a mess," he admitted. "A real one." She nodded. "I figured. I'm not going to the office," he said quickly. "I'll handle it from here." Her eyes lifted to his. "You don't have to prove anything." "I know. But I want to." She studied him for a moment, then stepped closer. "Just don't disappear. I won't." He moved to the small dining table and opened his laptop. Within minutes, the screen filled with familiar faces. Marcus' legal counsel, a few board members. Tension crackled through the speakers. "Logan," one of them began. "We need leadership on this." "You have it," Logan said calmly, "but it's not going to look the way it used to." He outlined a plan delegating authority, pushing Marcus forward, stepping back from micromanagement. There was resistance, frustration, raised voices. Through it all, Naomi moved quietly behind him, making coffee, setting a glass of water near his elbow. Without a word, he always noticed now. When the call ended nearly an hour later, Logan closed his laptop and exhaled slowly. "Well?" Naomi asked. "It's handled. Or at least, it will be." Leaned against the counter. "You stayed? I told you I would." She studied him, her expression conflicted. "What if the deal falls apart?" "Then it falls apart," he said simply. "The company will survive. I will survive." He stepped closer. "But I won't survive losing you again." Her breath hitched. "That's not fair," she whispered. "No," he agreed. "But it's honest." They stood there, the air between them heavy with everything unspoken. Finally, she turned back to the stove. "The garlic's burning." He laughed softly, relief loosening his chest. "I knew I'd mess it up." She took the pan from his hands. Some habits are hard to break. Later, they ate at her small kitchen table, knees brushing under the cramped space. The food wasn't perfect, but it was warm. Real. His phone buzzed once more. He didn't look at it. "You're not going to check?" she asked. "No." That got her attention. "I trust Marcus," he said. "And I trust that whatever happens, this matters more." She studied him for a long moment. "Say that again." "What?" "That part about this." He met her eyes. "You matter more." Something in her expression shifted, fear giving way to something softer, more fragile. After dinner, they sat on the couch, the quiet between them no longer uncomfortable. "I don't know if I'm ready to forgive you," she said eventually. "I know, but I can see you're trying." That's all I'm asking you to see. She leaned her head back against the cushion, eyes closing for a moment. I'm tired of being strong all the time. He turned toward her. You don't have to be, not with me. She opened her eyes and looked at him, really looked at him. Don't make me regret believing that. I won't, he said softly. I promise. And for the first time, she believed he meant it. Sunday morning arrived quietly. Rain tapped against the windows in a soft, steady rhythm, the kind that made the world feel slower, gentler. Logan woke on Naomi's couch with a blanket pulled over him and the faint smell of coffee drifting through the apartment. For a moment, he didn't move, he just watched her. She stood at the stove in an oversized sweater, hair pulled back loosely, humming under her breath as she stirred something in a mug. The light from the window caught her profile in a way that made his chest tighten. She looked peaceful, real, like someone who had finally stopped running. I can feel you staring, she said, without turning around. He smiled. Good morning, you snore, she added. I do not. Lightly, she said, setting 2 mugs on the counter. But it's there. She handed him a cup. Black coffee. 2 sugars. Just the way he liked it. How'd the crisis end? She asked. He checked his phone. 3 messages from Marcus. All positive, we contained it. The deal's still alive. Good. She took a sip of her coffee. You stayed. I told you I would. She nodded slowly. I know, I just needed to see it. They sat together in comfortable silence, rain tapping against the windows. The apartment wrapped in the kind of stillness that felt safe instead of lonely. After a moment, Logan spoke. You said you'd come with me. She looked up. Where? My mum's grave. Her expression softened. Today, if you're still willing. She hesitated only a second before nodding. Okay. The cemetery was quiet. Washed clean by the rain. Tall oak trees lined the path, their leaves dripping softly as Logan led her toward the back. Where his mother was buried, he stopped in front of a simple headstone. Eleanor, Holt's beloved mother and friend. He stood there for a long time, hands shoved into his coat pockets, unsure where to begin. I'm sorry it's been so long, he said finally. I got lost. Naomi stood beside him, close but not touching. I forgot what you taught me, he continued, about what matters, about not building things alone. He knelt and placed the sunflowers they'd bought at the market against the stone. You would have liked her, he said softly. She remembers things I forget. She sees people. Naomi swallowed, emotion tightening her throat. She would have been proud of you, she said. He shook his head. Not of who I became. She stepped closer then, slipping her hand into his. She would have understood. People lose their way sometimes. Logan looked at her, rain dampening her hair, eyes steady and kind. Do people ever really find their way back? He asked. She met his gaze. I think some do, if they're brave enough to try. He squeezed her hand. Emotion thick in his chest. You're my way back, he said quietly. She didn't pull away. They stood there together, rain falling softly around them. Grief and hope woven into the same moment. Later that afternoon, back at her apartment. The rain had stopped. They sat on the couch, closer now. Shoulders brushing. You know, Naomi said, this doesn't mean everything is fixed. I know, and I still don't know where this is going. I know that too. She turned to face him. But I can see you trying. Really trying. That's all I have to offer right now. She nodded slowly. It might be enough. They sat in silence, the kind that didn't demand to be filled. Logan glanced at her. Thank you. For today. For coming with me. She smiled faintly. Thank you for letting me. He reached for her hand, and this time, she didn't hesitate. Outside, the clouds began to part, sunlight breaking through in soft, tentative beams, and for the first time since everything had fallen apart, it didn't feel like the end. It felt like the beginning of something fragile, uncertain, and real. 3 weeks passed quietly. Not in silence, but in intention. Logan didn't rush anything. He didn't crowd her space or push for answers she wasn't ready to give. Instead, He showed up in small, consistent ways that mattered more than grand gestures ever could. Tuesday coffee became routine. Saturday walks turned into grocery runs. Evenings were sometimes spent together, sometimes apart, and for the first time in years, neither of them felt like they were disappearing inside the space between moments. Logan changed in ways that couldn't be faked. He left work on time, he silenced his phone without apology. He listened without waiting for his turn to speak. And most importantly, he stayed. Not once did he vanish when things grew quiet or complicated. One evening, as autumn settled deeper into the city, Naomi invited him over for dinner again. No announcement. No expectations. Just a simple text, "I'm cooking. If you want to come." He arrived with a bottle of wine and the same cautious hope he'd learned to carry carefully. The apartment smelled warm and familiar, no garlic herbs. Something simmering gently on the stove. She was barefoot, sleeves rolled up, hair pulled back loosely. "You're early," she said. "I know. I like being early now." She smiled, shaking her head as she turned back to the stove. They moved around each other easily, sharing the space without thinking. When the pasta boiled over, he grabbed a towel before she could. When she dropped a spoon, he picked it up without comment. It felt natural. After dinner, they sat on the couch, knees brushing, the city humming quietly outside the window. "Can I ask you something?" Naomi said. "Anything. Why are you really doing this?" she asked softly. "Not the grand reason. The real one." Logan leaned back, considering. "Because I spent years chasing success thinking it would make me whole," he said. "And I was wrong. I was just busy. Not fulfilled. And when you left, everything I thought mattered suddenly didn't." She watched him closely. "I don't want to win anymore," he continued. "I want to live. I want to wake up next to someone who knows me, who challenges me, who reminds me who I am. A beat past, and that's me." She asked. "I hope so," he said honestly. "But I also know I don't get to demand that. I have to earn it." She exhaled slowly, emotion flickering across her face. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Not of you. Of hoping again." "I know," he said. "So let's not rush it. Let's just keep choosing each other, one day at a time." She looked at him for a long moment, then reached for his hand. "Okay, it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't perfect, but it was real." Weeks later, Logan stood in the reading nook for the first time without feeling the ache of regret. The space felt different now. Lived in, used. Naomi sat in the chair, a book in her lap, sunlight catching in her hair. "You were right," he said quietly. "About what?" "This place," he said. "It does make you breathe." She smiled without looking up. "I told you." He crossed the room and stood behind her, resting his hands lightly on her shoulders. "You know," he said, "I used to think success was about building something big, and now I think it's about building something real." She leaned back against him, and for the first time in a long time, he felt grounded. Present. Later that night, as they stood on her balcony watching the city lights flicker on one by one, Naomi spoke softly. "I don't know what the future looks like. That makes two of us. But I do know this," she said, turning to him. "I'm not walking away anymore." He took her hands gently, reverently. "Neither am I." They didn't kiss right away. They didn't need to, because this time, it wasn't about passion or desperation or fear of loss. It was about choice, about staying, about building something slowly, honestly, together. And as the city breathed around them, Logan realized something for the first time in his life. He wasn't afraid of the future anymore, because this time, he wasn't facing it alone.